Welcome to I Am Maria podcast, a space where we explore the impact stories that inspire us to be who we are today, showing how our personal decisions and tools shape our lives. I am Maria. My full name is Maria Fernanda Valero. I will say Maria Fernanda Valero. I am from Venezuela and I'm actually 32 years old by now. I am a woman, a professional, a mother, a dreamer, hard worker, and passionate woman that believes that working hard on your dreams will actually make them become true. So today episode is special because the episode it's about me. It's about Maria, but it's really about how I come into creating this podcast. This is a space that is actually I don't know if I should say a hobby or a dream that it's becoming true. A dream to speak about my decisions, about my reflections, and about bringing the people that inspire me in a way or another with their story, with their personality sometimes. And that's what I want to show here. I want to expand that impact that I received from that story or the feeling, the sense, the hard time that I went through or that person that will be speaking here in this chair will share with you. In this episode today, I'll be speaking with Carla Valero, who has been a key piece on the creation and the development of this podcast. And she's my youngest sister, and I always used to, since I remember, I used to speak to her on the good and the hard days. And something that is very special is that when I moved away from Venezuela, she was very little. So basically, we grew up apart. And then every time we spend time together, we're so we express ourselves basically the same or very similar, that it's so funny that if we ever live together, this will never happen. The special part about speaking with Carla and the way I said the creation of this podcast is because when I started with the idea of a podcast, I used to go to what it was called Inside Out, which is really Carla Valero now. It's she letting you explore inside you and how is that you can get out the best way of yourself. So, the way we're going to be driving this episode today is I'm going to be speaking about who is Maria, how is that again, we created this podcast. And I say we because it's a lot of people that I've spoken with or that I understood that I had to have as a group of people as support to make this podcast live. I'll be speaking into that road in how is that I moved from Venezuela to the US and all that journey. But that journey really comes from the day I was born, from who I am, my personality. And how is that I struggle when I moved here? I moved here when I was 17 in finding that solo space that was a perfect way for me on finding the best version of myself and deciding each of the decisions that I was taking along the road. So, with all of that introduction that I already had, I'm gonna have Carla Valero now asking me a few questions that will help us to drive this special episode.
If something is very interesting for us that know you, and is still a little shocking, is the fact of calling you Maria. So many of us actually know you by another name, which is Nanda. What made you decide to go into Maria? How was that transition for you? Why did you decide to name the podcast I Am Maria?
So I did not decide to call myself Maria. It was kind of the easiest way to go into my name. Again, my full name is Maria Fernanda, and I never liked the name. Like I always say, why Maria? Everybody's called Maria, and then Fernanda was like, too long. I don't know. But then when I come into the US, my nickname, which was Nanda, and there's a lot of friends and a lot of people that still believes that my name is Nanda. When I come here, it's like I'm not gonna call myself Nanda because it's hard and it's not myself. So if I'm gonna be writing Maria in everywhere, why am I going to go by Nanda? So it was a struggle on me saying, I always hated in a way Maria, and then coming into the US and it was like Maria Valero, and I used to joke like, oh yeah, Maria, is the one cleaning my house per se with my husband, or I really struggle by the fact calling me Maria. I didn't like it because just by the fact that Maria was the first name and the only name, it right away tagged me as Latina. And then Valero, my last name, and then my pronunciation, which will never go away. So I was very shy to talk at the beginning, and then I'm like, these are my roots. I'm so proud to be from Venezuela. I am so proud to be a Latina. Nowadays, our culture is very proud to be here in the US and is very proud to be giving all of what we give. I believe that we Latinos, and I always say it, we give our 100 and more than that. We give our 1,000. So the fact that this country is giving us all the opportunities makes you to dream like I'm dreaming with a podcast, which is just a way of speaking, becoming a speaker, but just on a different platform. So when I'm thinking on, I want to become a speaker somehow one day, and I love podcasts. I'm a podcaster myself. I love to listen to podcasts. I'm like, maybe this is a way. And what if I call it I am Maria? Because I am Maria, but you are Maria and you are Maria and everybody is Maria because everybody has a Maria in their lives. And I've met people from every culture, per se, and they always have a Maria. So that makes sense. So that makes sense to me on calling I Am Maria podcast because it's about my story, but it's about everyone's story.
What you are trying to communicate with I Am Maria is that everyone has a story to tell.
Everybody has a story, so everybody will has a chance and have a space here in I Am Maria podcast to tell their story, to tell their impact. Um, we all have a different footprint, and that's what it's I Am Maria podcast.
I know you wanted to become a speaker and that you love to listen into podcasts, but specifically, your podcast is very interesting because it's about inspiring different type of generations, accompanying the older generation, inspiring and motivating the ones that are the same age as you, and on the other side, guiding the ones that are younger. What drove you to take that decision?
It's really listening to myself. I was very shy, and when I told my family that I was gonna make a podcast and that I wanted to become a speaker, they were like, "But you have been always shy." And that's true. So how come I'm shy, but I want to become a speaker? And it's just the fact that I love to talk. I love to talk to anybody. If you see me in the office, I'm talking to anybody and everyone in that office about how they are, about how the day is going, about how their life, how their life is. So this idea of becoming a speaker really comes on I love to talk. I love to talk to people. I love to talk to everybody. So by the fact that I'm always speaking to people at the office at Papa John's, I get the chance to speak about my story, about who Maria was, into the Boys and Girls Scouts. And it was a great panel. I actually have the chance to speak 2 years in a row. And I was I was kind of surprised to see how my story was impacting the younger generation, but also how connected I was with when I speak to like my friends or to like my cousins. So really like to the young generation and how I was becoming the person I'm becoming not only in professional life, but as a woman now, I work full time and I'm present in my son's life. I take him to school, I pick him up when he's sick. Thanks God I have the chance, to work from home, to work on a hybrid more mode when it's about family. And that's about creating the path you want. And that's what I tell the new generation, you need to vibrate, what you're doing needs to make you needs to makes you smile, and that's what I'm doing in my life. And that's why I moved to Atlanta. And that's why I keep working on what I do, which is design, but also combining it now with speaking to the new generation, which I always tell listen to you, listen to others and take what others have to say, but listen to your inner self. What is that you're going to be in 5, 10, or 20 years from now? Which was a question that a coach that I go sometimes ask me. What is Maria doing right now that will make her the woman she wants to be in 20 years from now? And that's a question that you need to ask yourself. If you're in high school, what is that you want to become? Do you want to become a mother? Do you want to become a professional? What is you want to travel the world? What is that makes you happy? Because if that makes you happy, then you're going to be living the life you want. Then I always tell the same thing to the generation that, is the same generation that I am. And it's about listening to others so that they know that the difficult times, they exist, and the way of creating community so that we can share those difficulties, but also to cheer up from when we have, or to celebrate when we have an accomplished, is very nice to know. And this is what I Am Maria podcast is creating. And I want to be sure that I share with you all that we need to listen also to the old generation per se, to the generation that already lived, and that also we know that based on the time or the culture that they used to live, they maybe didn't get to follow or to accomplish their goals, or maybe they did. So any of those stories needs to make an impact in ours so that we can be better and do better.
Why did you choose the people you chose for the first episodes?
First of all, that their stories were very organic. Speaking with some cousins, some friends, and some co-workers, and even from people that I follow on Instagram. I get inspired, but about what they do every day. It's about the young man that came into the US and now owns a business or works from home, and it's making it happen for him. Also that mother that also works as I do, that we go out every day and have to, balance it out a little bit here and there, but also with that woman that stayed at home. So it's about giving that space and the opportunity of asking who you are And how is that you make those decisions through life? So, to make those decisions through life, I thought that each of us have a toolkit. And that toolkit is could be anything. That toolkit can be reading, can be traveling, can be talking to a therapist or to a friend, or be inspired by an artist. Um, so that's the idea of I Am Maria podcast. My toolkit is to dream big, and to know that if you have big dreams, big sacrifices will happen. I had big dreams. I wanted it to work in corporate America, in business, and that's what I'm doing now. And it hasn't been easy. I've I've worked very long hours, and I remember back in the day, I used to work sometimes 17 hours a day, but I knew that those days were there because on the long road, I was gonna become or be who I wanted it to be. Um, and also along the road, I love singing. So, like, one of the the songs that always inspire me is the song from Hercules. It's about knowing that the hard days are there, but if you dream big, you're gonna make it. And definitely some support. I have great relationship with my family. Anytime I have something to celebrate or something to cry about, I call my mom and I call my sisters, and that's my support. But I also go to therapy, coaching classes, podcasts. I started to read. That was something that I didn't do before. I found myself that I never finish a book. And now I love reading, and I love also doing audibles. So those are kind of the toolkits lately, journaling, so those are the type of the toolkits that I have along the road to become who I am. To know that when I board that plane when I was 17 years old and I was leaving from Venezuela, I was very afraid because I was ending kind of a long relationship that I had. But also I was gonna leave by myself. And when I got the first time I left, I went to Boston, and that's where I studied English. And it was amazing because I was there just for a few months. But really, when I boarded the plane and I got to Gainesville and I got to, rent an apartment and have here you go, you have a car and you have an apartment, and this is the way you go to university, and you have to eat and you have to survive. It was very nice, and it was very hard at the same time because my apartment was basically solo. I used to live with a cousin before, and then she went back to Venezuela. And I knew that even though it was hard, I had to stay. I had big opportunities. I was finding myself. I was finding myself in that empty apartment, with no family, where we were a lot of cousins, and every day we used to go to grandma, and every Sunday we used to go to grandma, and those were not there anymore. So the birthdays and all those were by FaceTime. And then I was really by myself asking who I wanted it to become. And of course, I could do what I wanted it, and that was a chance to go out and party with my friends who are still like my sisters and brothers. But then, to really ask who is that you want to be in 5, 10, or 20 years from now. So I wanted to be an architect, and I also wanted to become an urban planner. So I had two bachelors, And then somehow, after working in a small architectural firm, doing everything I say, every project into like very small renovation or new projects into like big headquarters, I knew something else had to happen. So, like internally, I see myself that I manifest myself, and I knew that something else had to happen. And I remember that I used to start working by that time, 4 a.m. I was not the 5 a.m. club, the 4 a.m. club. And I remember waking up one day and Burger King um, reach out to LinkedIn. And I'm like, how does Burger King or these QSR companies actually do architecture? And when I got to visit the headquarters and do the interviews with everybody there, I was amazed, and I was like something inside me just like my heart was pounding because I knew that architecture and something else had to combine, but I wasn't sure that architecture and business was actually going to happen. And that was kind of the best time of my life, going and working there and working hard. I remember that I used to turn on the lights every time in the floor because I was the first one there. Um, for me, I had big shoes to fill, and that was being, the manager for design for North America, and was a crazy time when I was there because we used to work a lot, but it was crazy in the fact that I got to accomplish many professional dreams, and that people that I used to work every day with became family to me, and became family to me also because I had to go through a very hard time through my residency process, getting my green card here. My process got denied, and I had like 33 days to leave the country. And, this family really supported me into like, how can we help? Not as a business, but as people that was there. People working with me, people above me, people you know, it was everybody there. And at the time, I also got pregnant. Well, not got pregnant, but I learned like 5 days after my process was canceled and I lost my job. I learned that I was pregnant. And it was like, would I have to leave the country again? Would I have to move away from a different place? We just bought a new place. Um, and those moments in my life, I told myself that if I had to move away, I would just take it as nicely as I could because I was ready for it. I already left Venezuela. I already left Boston, Gainesville, and many places in around Florida, around Miami area. So why not? Maybe it was Europe. I didn't know. But then it was kind of the best time of my life because I was listening to myself again, and I got the chance to go to the ocean and then go back to work. So that life of waking up, doing exercises, cooking, being at home, being pregnant, and then going back to work again, which I was so happy. Um, and then a few months later, I get the chance to find this great opportunity with Papa John's, which is where I am right now. And I moved to Atlanta, which gives me this homey sense of of a place that I never had before after leaving Venezuela. Um, I love Miami, but I did not have mountains and rivers, and I'm very connected to nature. So I think all of those different decisions and tools and paths and solo times, And no solos, but with like the supports with your friends and family is what is getting me here and getting me to create this space.
Who do you want to invite to listen to the podcast, and why should they listen to it?
I will say everybody is invited to listen to the podcast and should listen to the podcast. It's about storytelling podcast. It's about a footprint that everybody could leave into your life. So there's a lot of stories here into how people migrated from one place to the other, or how they found opportunities, jobs, or how they created their dream life per se, or how those difficult times hit them. But knowing that life is one day and the other, and knowing that also decisions are there. I'm sure that you might listen to an episode that you might want to share to somebody that you know will benefit from it, but you will benefit from it somehow. Decisions, toolkits, the episode that you will hear today might hit you in a good way today, or I am sure that you will remember in a few years from now. And that is exactly coming back to the question that the coach asked me. And it's the same question that I ask the speakers and that I ask you and that you will get from here. What are you doing now? And what is that speaker doing now or did so that they could become the person that they wanted it to become in 5, 10, or 20 years from now?
You talk about decision making, inspiration, and impact. What are you trying to promote with the podcast?
I think definitely. And the speakers that I'm bringing, I just know a little of their story. And when they're speaking here, I've already learned so much myself. And I am sure you will learn into there's people that have said no, that have, made the decision to say no to something. But there's others that have made the decision to say yes. In that particular opinion, toolkit, or per se decision that the speaker made and that I will share with you is specifically what you will get from it and will inspire you to maybe say, hey, you know what? I'm not alone. Or maybe, hey, what? Why not?
What has this podcast meant for you?
It's been like a great journey on knowing how patient I need to be, even though I want to run so fast. I said that this podcast was going to be very organic, and it is very organic, but I never know how many steps along the way it had to be taken, or how many decisions along the way I had to take to create the space. But the space became in a way a space for me in a very particular time that I am going through. And repeating myself that I left Venezuela at 17, because I had to record so many times the video of introducing the podcast because it's not easy. But listening to myself on how many times I had to go through a difficult decision, and now I understand that difficult decisions is yet to happen because I'm only 32 years old. But then listening to every speaker that it's coming live in the first that they're coming into the first season, I was feeling that they were talking to me, especially on the last part of the podcast, where the episodes where we go into like more into reflection. Will you change anything in the past? Do you admire? Where is that you want to go? when they answer, I feel like they're talking to me and they're talking about their story. But I feel like they're talking to me because they're leaving a footprint into, you see, you can do better with what you have. You can say no. It's okay to say no. It's okay to put limits. And what I get, especially from I Am Maria, and then I want you to get from I Am Maria podcast as well, is listen to yourself. Listen to these episodes. Listen to Maria and listen to the people who are surrounding you. But the most important person that you need to listen is you. That's the way you're going to build your toolkit, and that's the way you're going to make decisions that you will not regret. So again, what are you doing now to become that person that you are today that you want to become in 5, 10, and 20 years from now? And I just want to share a little piece from my story and from the story that I'm bringing on each episode. It's only 30, 40 minutes, but you will get so much from them.
How has it been for you, now that you're creating this podcast, to realize of how many people around you have actually been an inspiration?
So I actually feel like I admire people just because they live. Are they leaving a footprint in this world somehow? You know, I feel like I am leaving a footprint, especially because I am living my life. So when I bring somebody into the podcast, it's because I know they're living their life. They're living their fears or they're living their dreams. And each of those dreams or each of those challenges that they have shared with me or that I have seen. Again, I interviewed a lady that I follow on Instagram. And I was so inspired by her story because she left Ukraine to go to Spain with her daughter and her son to live better. And she was actually one of the people, the persons that I thought on, if I open a podcast, I actually want to interview her because her story, it's amazing. Empower any woman, not because you're going to what she went through or she's going through, which is war, but by the fact that, um, we women have a way of empowering ourselves through stories, through sharing, and men as well. I found myself very inspired in a conference that I went through, and I was thinking on creating the podcast on a woman, a professional. It's kind of a layering process on who you are, any of us. But I find myself very inspired because men are supporting so much right now, women, into we becoming mothers, but professionals as well, which is a struggle or a struggle for me or struggle for the new generation that sometimes are thinking on, should I have a family or should I follow my dreams? And I'm like, you can follow, you can do both. You can do many. You can do as much as you want if you're listening to yourself, right? If you're being happy.
You previously mentioned to younger people that they should think about what their life might be in 10 years. What is Maria doing today to work toward that projection?
So that question actually was for my son. I was going to this coach because I wanted it to be a better mom. I always want to do better. I'm always, learning and studying how I can do better at my work, but also now at this work that I have as a mother. And she asked me what I am doing right now, for what Enzo what I want him to be in 5, 10, or 20 years from now. And one of the things that I want with my son, which is my only one right now, but what I want with my son is to have a great relationship and to go out for dates with him, like, for lunch or for dinner. And I understood that, yeah, when he grows up, I cannot just like tell him, hey, we're going to start going out for a date. But it's the fact that I'm doing it right now that he's 3, but I've been doing it for a year or more, and now he asked me as well to go on a date. So if I ask that question myself, I think I have to say, first of all, I am very proud to listen to myself that I'm going to coaching to do better as a mom. And that is specifically something that I am doing right now. It's I'm studying and I'm following my dreams, especially with the podcast right now. That was something that I cannot explain how happy and motivated and nervous I am about opening this space on going out of my comfort zone. But definitely, I know that opening this space and this podcast will leave a huge impact in 5 and 10 and 20 years from now. And not only for the people who will listen to the podcast, but especially to myself, because I will have the chance to meet, to interview, to get inspired, and to share this inspiration to others from all those stories that we'll have here in I Am Maria podcast. So each of those speakers that I will have the chance to speak to will leave me a lot because I'm already studying my way, but I'm also getting from others those sessions, toolkits, and dreams and the reflections that they will share at the end of the episode. So definitely, I want to continue with this huge dream. I want to continue to work because that's my passion. And I want to have a farm with a cow, a horse, a chicken, and many animals where I can work from and live happy and calm, as I always said with my son. So definitely that now that I get to think about that, that question, I feel very proud to see, that I am starting to be better as a mom, as a professional. I go to coaching, I go to therapy, I read books, I listen to stories of others that help me to drive situations or also to dream big. If another person could or can, why I cannot. And that's an inspiration that I got as well to do the podcast and to follow this dream of becoming a speaker and sharing my story, but really stories from everybody, because this is not about Maria, who is me. It's about Maria. It's about every story. So that's what I want to get from this. And that I know that in 5, 10, and 20 years from now, every episode will have gave me a lot of tools and a lot of reasons and reflections to believe that what I am doing right now, even though it's very hard for me to be recording myself and to be saying that I want to become a speaker when I am very shy, I know that in 5 and 10, 20 years from now, I will have gained so much from interviewing people, but I also will gain so much from inspiring many others.
What are you grateful for, and what can you celebrate about yourself and the creation of this podcast?
So, the same way I am very grateful, I am very proud of myself for stepping out of my comfort zone. And even though I am very shy, I am following the dream of becoming a speaker. And also the fact that I learned that if I am going to follow the dream of having a podcast, I will have to have support along the way. I am a person that struggles with asking for help or support sometimes, and knowing that I have to fulfill some houses to make this possible and to speak about making it possible, stepping out again of the comfort zone and recording myself, having to buy a microphone that if you ask me, it's like, oh my God, it's a dream come through to me. But having to, use it it's really, again, a dream because it's like, I am doing it. It's actually happening. So I don't know where this is really going to be in 5, 10, or 20 years from now. But for me, it's big already. The fact that in 24 hours, 100 people follow this storytelling podcast without knowing who are the people who are coming to share their stories. But I want to thank you again for being here, if for being open to listen to my story. And I want to tell you that this space is open for you to tell your story to the world through I Am Maria podcast. And I am looking forward to our conversation. I am Maria, and this is my story. What is yours?
How can listeners support you?
You can support I Am Maria podcast by sharing. You can support by liking, by commenting, and why not about sharing your story? So if you know that you have a cool story, that you have taken cool decisions, or probably you have a very cool toolkit that you want to share with more people, let me know. This space is for you as well.